A pleasure to be associated with WTBS, and we promise to bring you the greatest in professional wrestling entertainment in the world today.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself. It is July 14th, 1984, or what has come to be known in the wrestling world as Black Saturday. Friday in our case, because 1984 was a leap year, remember? Black Saturday occurred when the original incantation of World Championship Wrestling, originally known as Georgia Championship Wrestling, was invaded by Vince McMahon, who had just bought it out as he increased his ever-expanding empire to include that area. Why is this such a big deal, you might ask? Well, if you have been keeping up with my regular weekly episodes, you'll know that there are two major promotions in the United States and North America right now. Number one is the World Wrestling Federation, owned by Vince McMahon, and the other is the National Wrestling Alliance. Since breaking free of the NWA itself back in 1983, the World Wrestling Federation has been expanding. I told you just last week of how Maple Leaf Wrestling was the recent victim of Vince McMahon's expansion, and now so is Georgia Championship Wrestling, or World Championship Wrestling, however you want to call it. This was just one of the first signs, as Thanos would say, that Vince McMahon is inevitable. Aired every Saturday on WTBS, Georgia Championship Wrestling had a very loyal fan base who tuned in to see some of the same wrestlers that I cover when I talk about Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling and sometimes Worldwide Wrestling. Now, I want you to do something. Pretend it's still 1984. You've woken up, it's Saturday, you've grabbed yourself a bowl of Fruity Pebbles, a can of Pepsi, and you are ready to watch your favorite program, Georgia Championship Wrestling. Maybe you don't get the channels that airs the WWF, or maybe you just choose not to. But instead of seeing the likes of the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Dirty Dick Slater, and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, instead you see Hulk Hogan, Big John Studd, and Jose Luis Rivera. That's exactly what happened to television audiences this day in 1984. They were furious. Hundreds of phone calls were sent towards TBS, and thousands more even wrote in letters of absolute distaste. They tuned in to watch the NWA, not the WWF. Despite the viewers back in 1984 not being able to see what they actually wanted, we here in 2023 do not have that problem. So I'm going to do all of you a favor that may have had your Saturday, July 14th, 1984 ruined, and tune in first to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling this week. As the program starts, we are greeted by Bob Caudle, and the first match is a tag team match between Vinnie Valentino and Gary Quartinelli taking on the Assassins. Wait a second, the Assassins? What? Thankfully, Paul Jones, the manager of the Assassins, has joined Bob Caudle on guest commentary for a moment and explains that he has brought in a new client. We know of Assassin number 1, who we've been referring to as the Assassin for the past several weeks, but now joining him is none other than Assassin number 3. After explaining this to us, Paul Jones then heads down to the ringside area to provide his team with the management skills that they deserve. Despite this being the first time that I've seen Assassin number 3, both he and Assassin number 1 demonstrate excellent teamwork and outpace their opponents. A tremendous power slam from Assassin number 3 then leads to number 1 being tagged in, who drops an elbow onto Gary Quartinelli to get the W for his team. Chief Wahoo McDaniel has beaten Ricky Steamboat to become the NWA United States Heavyweight Champion. And the controversy surrounding this is the fact that Tully Blanchard interfered in that match, and some would say cost Ricky Steamboat that championship. I disagree, but as we know, the NWA likes to spin its own propaganda the way that it sees fit. Anyways, Bob Caudle informs us that the NWA Board of Directors has made the decision to vacate the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship as a result.
The NWA has held up the United States Heavyweight Championship.
What the hell? I don't want to be that guy, but you remember when Chief Wahoo McDaniel said the reason he didn't get title shots in the NWA was due to the fact that he was Native American and thus a victim of racism? Well, he got his title shot, a shot that he won. And oh boy, the NWA Board of Directors couldn't have that now, could they? Chief McDaniel winning never fell into the Board of Directors' machinations. So sure were they of Ricky Steamboat's victory. Well, he did win. And so the NWA, seeing that Chief Wahoo McDaniel and his hard-fought victory earned him the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, left them with only one option: strip him of his championship. This just proves that all along, Chief Wahoo McDaniel was right. Everybody on the NWA Board of Directors is not only corrupt, but racist as well. Justice for Chief Wahoo McDaniel, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we need. Tully Blanchard then emerges and says that since there is no current NWA United States Heavyweight Champion, whether we like it or not, that makes him, as the NWA Television Champion, #1 contender for the Nature Boy Ric Flair's NWA World Heavyweight Championship. At least there's something positive that we can take away from all of this. Tully Blanchard then joins Bob Caudle on guest commentary for the next match, which does see the World Heavyweight Champion himself, Ric Flair, take on Gary Royal, and the pair of them shake hands as they get down to business. With little effort, Ric Flair forces Gary Royal to submit with the figure 4 leg lock, and as the World Heavyweight Champion heads backstage, Bob Caudle catches him for an interview and wants to know what the Nature Boy's thoughts are on this NWA United States Heavyweight Championship controversy. According to Ric Flair, he has now been wrestling for a decade, and in his time, he has never heard of this happening in the NWA. However, he then does go on to say that he defends the Board of Directors' decision?
I've seen the film myself. I think they made a wise move.
What? Aren't you supposed to be friends with Chief Wahoo McDaniel? You know what, Flair? I knew you were never any good. You suck. Flair then also rubs salt in the wounds by saying that he is disappointed with how Chief Wahoo McDaniel won the championship to begin with, calling it a tainted victory.
I'm a little disappointed that he took the victory the way he did.
What do you mean, tainted victory, Flair? You're not even the real World Heavyweight Champion. Dirty Dick Slater is, so shut up. Then, addressing his former friendship with Chief Wahoo McDaniel, Ric Flair says that maybe, one day, he and the Chief can rekindle their friendship.
Well, Wahoo, we've been like this, and I hope that we'll always be like this.
Buddy, you are all over the place. Pick a stance and stay with it. The final thing that Flair says is that despite his grievances with Chief Wahoo McDaniel and despite the United States Heavyweight Championship controversy, Flair is a man of his word and will honor his statement of giving Chief Wahoo McDaniel a shot at the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. With all due respect to the Chief, Tully Blanchard is now the #1 contender. Buzz Sawyer, who recently competed in the WWF, has wandered his way down to the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area, and he's set to face off against Bret Hart and spread his own version of chaos. Sawyer starts the match off by biting at Bret's face before rubbing it violently into the mat. Hart manages to get away and attempts a desperate crossbody, but he's caught by Sawyer, who then turns it into a power slam and gets the 1-2-3. Despite the bell signifying the end of the match, Sawyer is still hungry and gets a few more bites into Bret Hart before he finally heads backstage, belly full of Hart flesh. Paul Jones and the New Assassins are backstage with Bob Caudle, and Jones immediately addresses the elephant in the room. Assassin number 2 was an embarrassment to the team, but warns Assassin number 3 by saying that,
And Assassin number 3, I want to tell you in front of everybody here, if you're not man enough to keep that mask, you better leave right now.
Assassin number 1 then says that what he likes most about Assassin number 3 is the fact that his new partner is slightly mentally unbalanced and says that he would rather lose his whole head than his mask. 6-man tag team action is next, and it sees the team of the Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant, Exotic Adrian Street, who is accompanied by Miss Linda, and Rufus R. Freight Train Jones taking on the team of Bobby Bass, Paul Kelly, and Kurt Von Hess. I never trusted Adrian Street, and now look at him, mingling with Jimmy Valiant's circus of freaks. He fits right in. With a mixture of Street's psychological warfare, the Freight Train's wiggling weirdness, and Jimmy Valiant's inability to feel any kind of pain, it's no wonder that they quickly secure the victory over their opponents.
The people cheering, these are their heroes, and I've been saying this for weeks on end. They don't follow the rules.
Amen, Mr. Blanchard. Amen. On the other side of the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship controversy is the man that lost the championship, Ricky Steamboat, and he's backstage being interviewed by David Crockett. Steamboat can't believe that Chief Wahoo McDaniel would take a tainted victory, seethe, mauled, cope, and then goes on to say that the NWA Board of Directors made the right call by vacating the championship. Why don't you head back to retirement and tend to your summer exercises, you crybaby? Finally, we get to hear from the victim in all of this, Chief Wahoo McDaniel.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Flair. If it had been your belt that made a ruling for, I don't believe you'd have been quite so happy.
Obviously unhappy, the Chief then turns his attention to the man we just heard from, Ricky Steamboat.
I'm just going to tell you one thing, Steamboat. You're a crybaby, brother, and you better stay in that gym where you belong, because you don't belong in wrestling anymore.
Amen, Chief McDaniel. Amen. The Renegade takes on Ben Alexander in singles competition next. Once the bell rings, the Renegade is all over Alexander, inside and outside of the ring. A vicious chop on Ben echoes throughout the entire arena before the Renegade drops an elbow on his opponent and gets the win. Bob Caudle is backstage once again, and this time he has exotic self-proclaimed Adrian Street and his valet Miss Linda standing by for an interview. Street says that he and his new friends, Jimmy Valiant, Rufus R. Jones, all have one thing in common. They're all ugly, weird freaks. No, he actually says that they have one thing in common, being that they are all on Paul Jones's hit list, and then goes on to say that he's honored to be in such good company.
I'm so honored to be on that.
It's an honor to be on that register.
Oh, such an honor. And in such good company, you know?
The Freight Train then lives up to his moniker as he smashes into the interview area without being invited and targets Kamala, Paul Jones's newest weapon in the war, saying that the Ugandan is
Kamala, yeah.
Yes. Look like an elephant. Walk like an elephant.
The main event of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling sees the Masked Outlaw take on Mark Fleming one-on-one. As always, the Outlaw has that dreaded whip with him, causing it to crack and force the audience into submission.
Fans in the ring, you're looking at the Outlaw. There's the bell, and the Outlaw with that bullwhip.
Fleming has brief moments of promise in this match, but he never is able to employ anything more impressive than a shoulder lock or hit a drop kick on his opponent. Utilizing some of the knowledge taught to him by his mentor, Dory Funk Jr., the Masked Outlaw stays close to the ropes, which forces Mark Fleming to break some of the holds he tries to employ. The Masked Outlaw secures the win with an awkward-looking pin before taking the whip to Mark Fleming for even thinking about trying to win. 3 interviews wrap up Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, all hosted by Bob Caudle. And the first interviewee is the newest newcomer to the Mid-Atlantic area in Buzz Sawyer, who screams that he's come here for the competition before asking, "Where is it?" Next up are the NWA World Tag Team Champions, Don Kernodle and Ivan Koloff, along with the Russian Bear's nephew in Nikita Koloff. The Pride of the Carolinas also wants to know where the competition is, albeit when it comes to the tag team division, before Ivan Koloff reminds everybody and all the teams out there that there is still an open golden challenge for the NWA World Tag Team Championships. All they have to do is show up. Ivan Koloff then informs us that, unfortunately, Nikita Koloff has been incredibly depressed lately, due to the fact that he has not won any championships in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. But family is there for you when you need it, and so the Russian Bear vows to help his nephew achieve his goals. The final interview of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling is with none other than the NWA Television Champion, Tully Blanchard, who simply asks a rhetorical question.
All as I can say, Bob Caudle, with the NWA's decision, who's the #1 contender?
All right, fans, the NWA TV champ.
With Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling over, let's tune into Vince McMahon's WWF and remind everybody that it is still very much Black Saturday.
Ladies and gentlemen, this match is a tag team match.
Yep, it sure is, Joe. What McHugh was trying to tell you and me is that the first match on Championship Wrestling is a tag team match between Rene Goulet and Lanny Kean taking on the team of the Wild Samoans, Appa and Sika. Vince McMahon and Mean Gene Okerlund are calling commentary this week, and as the match begins, Rene Goulet takes his time, which causes Sika to lose his cool, and he takes it out on the Frenchman. Captain Lou Albano heads down to the ring, circles it, and then heads backstage, much to the confusion of Vince McMahon and Gene Okerlund on commentary.
Mr. Albano, I think, is on his way back to the dressing room. He just kind of circled the wagons and headed back to the locker room.
He's scouting his former clients, you morons. The Wild Samoans have been on a hot streak lately, and they would be on fire if they re-signed with the captain. Kean gets dissected by the Wild Samoans, and he tries to reach out to tag in Rene Goulet, but it's just ignored. A Samoan drop from Sika on Kean ends the match for the Wild Samoans. Gentleman Jerry Valiant, the brother of the Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant, takes on Ivan Putski next. It doesn't happen often, but the Polish power actually gets overpowered at times by the gentlemen in this match. Each competitor has a chance to get some posturing in, employing several holds against one another. But a surprise Polish hammer from Ivan Putski as Valiant comes off the ropes secures the Polish power the W. Billy Travis was impressive in his match against Greg the Hammer Valentine last week. So let's see what he can do this week against a former WWF World Heavyweight Champion in the Iron Sheik, who's accompanied as always by Ayatollah Blasi. To start the match off, Billy Travis is actually able to hit the Iron Sheik with a drop kick. Billy then tries to use the ropes to kick the Iron Sheik, but then only gets himself caught up in them, which turns the tide of the match firmly in the favor of his opponent. Travis is then tossed outside of the ring. The Iron Sheik follows and then hits Billy with a wooden chair to the head, and then also decides, let's give his back a turn too. Once back into the ring, a back suplex greets Billy Travis before he's polished off with the camel clutch. The WWF update this week focuses on Big John Studd, and Vince McMahon informs us recently a match between Studd himself and current WWF World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan ended in a no contest, before informing us that there is no doubt a rematch will be scheduled shortly. Vince, you could use this WWF update time to inform us, update us, if you will, about something important. Here, I'll give it a shot. Hello, WWF fans, it's me, Vinnie Mac, and I'm here to tell you that I just recently bought Georgia Championship Wrestling. Those losers down south have no idea what they're in for, pal. They are gonna see my crap. The best crap, not that NWA crap. Haha, I love being rich. See? Now that's how you do an update. Every week we are getting closer and closer to the showdown between Captain Lou Albano's Fabulous Moolah and Cyndi Lauper's Wendi Richter. Last week we were able to see the training regimen that Captain Lou Albano has been putting the Fabulous Moolah through, so it's only fair that we see how Cyndi Lauper is preparing Wendi Richter. Wendi's working out hard at the gym, cheered on by Cyndi, before Wendi goes on to say that
Blue's going down, and so is Schmoolah.
So says the woman doing the worst crunches I've ever seen. The main event of WWF Championship Wrestling sees Special Delivery Jones taking on half of the WWF World Tag Team Champions in Dick Murdoch. Murdoch is incredibly aggressive throughout the entire match, hitting Special Delivery with several hard elbows. So Jones retaliates in kind with headbutts, and it comes down to the question of which of these two pieces of meat is going to be able to take the most punishment. Dick Murdoch goes up to the top rope and drives SD Jones's head down into the mat with his knee. An elbow drop follows, but only results in a near fall. The men head outside of the ring and continue to brawl, all while the referee counts all the way to 10. As he gets driven shoulder first into the ring post, Murdoch notices the referee's count and so slides back into the ring while Jones simply gets counted out. And so, the end of another week is upon us. The ramifications of Black Saturday were felt for years, eventually leading to the removal of WWF programming from WTBS and a return to what audiences were familiar with: NWA programs. World Championship Wrestling would eventually be returned to the NWA, but then in turn would be bought out by someone named Ted Turner. But that is a story for another time. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. Don't forget to like the video, hit the bell, and subscribe so you're always notified when a new video is released. You can also follow me on social media, where I hope you'll share the video with your family and friends. As well, there's plenty of good, fun wrestling stuff for you to check out there too. Before I leave you, I have a question. Did you survive Black Saturday? If so, let me know your personal experience of Black Saturday down in the comments below. That's it for me for now. I'll see you next week. So long. And as always, the Outlaw has that dreaded whip with him, something he uses to crack. What McHugh was trying to say is that the first match is a tag team match between the team of Lanny, Kean, and somebody. I did as good as Joe McHugh there. Each competitor has a chance to get some posturing in. I forgot my lines.